Not even 3 weeks later, they're moving in together. We had a great relationship, the steady, supportive, stable, consistent kind. We met online. I wasn't overly attracted to him, but he was friends with a friend's brother, so I figured he must be a good guy. It was a slow build to our relationship, but we moved in together after 9 months. He worked long hours. I took care of all things house and home, including watching his dog. It worked. We had fun. We fought and made up. We made plans for our future. When people ask why I like him, I would say that he's just a really great guy, and I believed it for 2.5 years. The end of our relationship came abruptly. I got a message from an acquaintance from high school at 4 p.m. on a Wednesday. She works at a local hotel. She recognized Spencer from my social media. She tells me he's been frequenting the hotel with another woman. They often stay only a few hours. I ask for the dates, at least 5 times in the month of August, mostly from 7 to 11 p.m. Once a whole night stay while I was out of town. I look at my text messages from him to see what lies he told me on those dates. They're extensive. The most intricate included him helping a friend in a nearby town to load pigs on a truck. I found it odd that I've never heard of this friend, and I couldn't understand why this guy didn't have other farmer friends. But Spencer's a butcher, so it tracked that it could be in the realm of possibilities. He got home after his hotel tries that night, just after midnight. He came upstairs to our bed, where I was sleeping, and laid on top of me, holding me close. I asked him about his night, and he recounted the tale of herding pigs onto the truck. He was so snuggly that night. In hindsight, he was extra affectionate all the nights he returned home after effing Lorena in hotels. I didn't have a lot of time to process this information. It's 4 p.m. and Spencer had been without a car for a couple months, so I'd been driving him to and from work every day. It was time to pick him up. He got in the car and kissed me hello as always. As I started to drive, there were hot air balloons in the sky. I had just purchased non-refundable hot air balloon ride tickets for us 2 weeks earlier. I pointed them out excitedly and told him how that was his surprise birthday gift, and we were scheduled to go in a few days. He was so excited. He rubbed my neck and told me I was the best. He hasn't even asked why I turned the opposite direction from where we normally go to go home. I asked him if he's felt disconnected lately. He says he's just busy with work and with back to school. I'm a teacher. We're out of our routine. We'll plan a day to reconnect. He tells me about his day and his daily work drama. I listen attentively. He still doesn't ask for notice why we're not heading home. I pull onto the street where the hotel is. Now he seems to be noticing. Asks what we're doing. I turn into the hotel parking lot and park. He's freaking out. What are we doing here? What's going on? I calmly turn to him, take a deep breath, and say, "Welcome to the worst day of my life." I know, I just need to hear you say it. I don't know where my calmness is coming from. I certainly don't feel that way. He won't look at me. He's silent for 10 minutes. I finally say, "I was really hoping you were going to say you had a surprise for me, and I just ruined it all." "I wish I could say that too," he finally says. "How long?" I ask. He holds up one finger without looking at me. 1 month, I say. "One time," he snaps, finally looking at me. More lies. I have proof of at least 5 hotel stays over the last month. He can't tell me why, but says he's not sure he ever loved me. He thinks he wanted to be happy, but wasn't. This hurts. But why not end it? Why pursue an affair? Is it even true? He just held my face in his hands, looking deep into my eyes, telling me that he loves me and nothing will ever change that. A few days ago, while we were planning a budget for our future, we were going to look at rings. He asked me to drive him to his parents. I do. In hindsight, my badass confrontation would have been better if I'd kicked him out of the car. I whip home, and my parents come meet me and pack his belongings into green garbage bags. They're shocked. We're all crying. He picks up his stuff that night, turns away and doesn't look back. He owes me $25,000. He borrowed the money in October 2021 in order to pay back his employer, who made fake T4s in order for him to qualify for a mortgage. The deal was that Spencer paid the taxes that the business would have to pay to the CRA on the fake income. When he quit that job with the employer demanded his money. We were in love. I trusted him completely. I wrote him a check on my line of credit. Perhaps his willingness to commit mortgage fraud should have been my first red flag. He hasn't been able to pay anything since I lent it to him, except the interest. He was living rent-free in my home so he could save for a car and save for a future. He chose to spend his savings on hotel rooms and whining and dining with another woman all over town. Why wouldn't Lorena demand more? Why wouldn't she demand he break up with me before pursuing anything? Why hotels? Why wouldn't they go to her house? Turns out she lives with her parents. They're in love. They're soulmates. They have a lot in common. They're both trained chefs and they work together closely at the same company. I do hope my pain was worth it. I hope they are soulmates because that is the only thing that makes sense to me as to how or why you could do that to someone. I'm a sucker for a good love story, and I'm sure they will rewrite the beginning of theirs. I hope he and Lorena are happy. I hope I get my $25,000. I hope my pain subsides soon. But the story is still unfolding. Update, I got my money. He paid in full today. It in no way excuses his actions, and he tried to pull some shady shit right up until the end. But I haven't, and my healing can begin. My neighbors are badass, and they were all outside, so he had to do the walk of shame to my house. My mother was waiting to accept the funds on my behalf and give him some random stuff left that I found in storage. My neighbors report that he was unable to look them in the eye and had quite a red face. Today I'm happy and relieved. I hope it stays this way. Story 2. Would you consider betrayal of trust to be cheated on? I have been following this sub for a while, reading many stories and wondering if I should tell mine and ask for input. I think my relationship is over, so here I am. I will try to be as brief as possible so I can actually have people read and share their input. If you need more details, I'll be glad to share. I just want it to be as straightforward as possible. Me, 26 female, and my boyfriend, 27 male, met 5 years ago on Tinder during 2017. We met and it was love at first sight. Started dating immediately. Within a year of being together, I found out about his first love, who had dumped him a couple months before we met. They had been together since high school, lived together, were engaged until one day she woke up and dumped him and left without ever turning back, and without a reason. He thinks it's because she wanted to have a baby and he didn't at the moment. Who knows? He was very depressed after she left him, and still while we were dating. But things have gotten better. I think somehow us being together has been good for him. We had our roller coaster during the first year, when I found out the story, but hey, here we are. As of today, we have been living together since 2019. He bought a house in 2020, and we both live here. It is our home. We have had a pretty happy life. No complaints with even my low libido. We have made it work this whole time. If you asked me a year ago if I was happy, I would have said yes without hesitation. In February 2022, after a heart-to-heart conversation, he gave me a promise ring after stating he would never want to get married as she broke his heart back then. I accepted it even though I wanted to get married. But I said I will make it work because I love him, and I was fine with it. It was our promise to love each other no matter what. In March of this year, I saw him texting her while we were together at an amusement park. I could hear my heart pounding. Asked why, and he said she had texted him a few days earlier. I had noticed him acting strange that week, but hey, we all have our days, so I had not read further into it. That night when we got home after having a terrible day at the park, I confronted him and he stated they were trying to have closure, that she had a 1.5-year-old kid. She was going through a divorce and she wanted to reach out to him to try and understand what had happened. We had a pretty rough couple of weeks after that night because I would use bullet points to make it shorter. The following night he left me for 5 hours at night to speak on the phone with her. She lives in another state. She told him she wanted to be back with him, that she still loved him. He kept talking to her behind my back after I asked him to stop, and he agreed and said he was not going to. Video calls during the day, long drives at night. During this whole situation, I looked on his phone. I know this was an invasion of his privacy, and I discovered that during 2018 to 2019, he was texting her, even asked her to go on vacation with him to a beautiful place that he took me, after she said no. Since then, we made peace, decided to move on, work things out. I've read countless blogs of how to forgive and forget, but the truth is that I can't move on. I changed. I can tell I am not the same person I was. I am not happy anymore. I don't think I love him as I used to. Before I would die before letting anything happen to him. Now I just think just F him. I love you, but F you. You need to hurt. And I make big deals out of nothing. Before we would never argue. Maybe once every 2 months. Now any tiny thing I want to argue, be mad. We have had the conversation a handful of times where he had asked me why I act the way I do. He even said I am acting as a B. And when I tell him the truth, that I am still hurt, I can't let go, he says it's stupid, that he didn't hurt me, that I'm making a big deal out of nothing, that I decided to be hurt and I don't want to move on. Today we had a fight about a house chore, where we both yelled at each other. Said we are tired of this S, and that he said he wants me out of his house by the end of the week. Has anyone been in a similar situation? What suggestions would you have? Update to my prior post about betrayal of trust. After reading so many people's opinions, suggestions, and support, I decided to go to a counselor to seek guidance on how to overcome the situation and either move forward together or take separate paths. I was feeling so unhappy that I even moved to the guest bedroom. In my first session, the counselor asked me to find something in our relationship that could replace the trust and make me stay while we work on rebuilding it. I had no clue what that would be. That same night I spoke to him about it, and he decided to break up. He told me he was getting tired of me and my attitude towards the situation, that he could not trust me anymore, and he also said that with all this situation going on, he would never marry me or have kids with me because this is not how adults act, that the best thing to do was to take separate ways. I packed my things the next day and left. I have been living at my sister's for the past 2 weeks. It has been hard, especially trying to figure out my living arrangements, as staying here is not a long-term solution. I am hurt. The first couple of days were rough, but now I feel fine. I tried to do the best I could to not take a decision in the heat of the moment, but then he decided to make that decision on my behalf, and I know he regrets it because he has been reaching out. But I think that I'll just enjoy living my life by myself. I don't know what destiny has for us. I don't know if this is it, or if we will be back together. But as of right now, I am working on finding a place I can afford to enjoy my life alone. Top comment. Let me get this straight. He had an affair and said he doesn't trust you even though he was the person in the wrong? Don't ever get back with him. He sounds like he was in love with his ex and just trying to use you until he got her back. Original poster replies, yes, pretty much. He does not see the situation as an affair and he will never accept it. To him, an emotional affair is not a thing, and I am the one not to be trusted for how I handled the situation. Another Redditor says, just know the other woman will be back with him as soon as she can make it happen. He never got over her. She reached out because she was scared living alone with the baby and no SO in her life. He will find he will not return to the same relationship with her as before. The baby, not his, will be a difference maker. Original poster replies, they're not even together. He doesn't want anything to do with her and someone else's baby. And she's still married and living a happy life. I know he's not over her, but he knows how much he effed up and he's just blaming stuff on me.